Yo, what's poppin', everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Vitamin C's, your regular dose of Celtics content. As usual, I'm your boy Adam Taylor, and as usual, I'm joined by my homie, compadre, co-host in crime, Mr. Tim Shields. What's poppin', Tim?
Nothing much. Upright, eating nourishment on the right side of the dirt, all the good stuff.
Yeah, all the good stuff on Celtics schedule day. That's what I'm talking about, baby. I'm feeling good.
Mm-hmm.
The schedule's looking good. It's just 82 games onto the postseason where they can walk down and go back to back, baby. Jokes aside, and I know that was kind of like, I wasn't really as energetic as what I could have been there, dude. It's nearly 11 p.m. now. So for me over here on this side of the pond, so, this is energetic for 11 p.m. Just in case anybody's watching it like, well, he didn't really sound excited. Dude, I'm tired. Leave me be. Yeah. So look, in a recent episode, we touched on the Celtics season opener against the Knicks. We gave our thoughts, we gave our opinions. We're going to gloss over that one. We also touched on the Philly game at Christmas. We gave our thoughts, we gave our opinions. We looked at the big man rotation against Embiid. We can gloss over that. The last episode we did, we talked about the NBA Cup and the Celtics' thoughts, opinions, and matchups throughout the NBA Cup. So do you know what we're going to do? We're going to gloss over
What are we
that
gonna
too.
do?
And what we're going to do is I want to focus on the toughest stretches, right? So for me, looking at this schedule, there are two really tough stretches. So I'm going to pull it up in front of me again now, and I'll put this on the screen if you're watching on YouTube as well. So the toughest stretch for me is between February 2nd and March 8th, right? And the reason that's so tough is just because of the level of teams that the Celtics are playing there. So I'm just going to read these out. I'll try to be as minimally monosyllabic as possible. So please bear with me. I might just vary my voice just because I don't want people falling to sleep. So they've got the Philadelphia 76ers on the 2nd of February, the Cleveland Cavaliers on the 4th of February. Both of those are road games. They go back to the TD Garden on the 6th to play Dallas. Then they're back on the road to New York on the 8th, on the road again against Miami on the 10th, home for the Spurs on the 12th. We got All-Star break. Everyone can get rested. Dudes can do what they got to do. Then you go away to Philly on the 20th, at home for New York, away for Toronto and Detroit, at home for Cleveland. And then you've got home games against Denver, Portland, Philadelphia, Los Angeles Lakers, Utah, Oklahoma. Then you go back on the road for Miami, Brooklyn. And then we can kind of chill there, right? That takes us up to like the 15th of March. So it's just a lot of high-level teams, a lot of playoff teams there. I just want to count, actually. We'll go through now, and we'll count the playoff teams. Philly's a playoff team. Cleveland's a playoff team. Dallas, New York, Miami. San Antonio, probably not. Toronto, no. Detroit, no. But so you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games in February against playoff teams. You go into March, you got Denver's a playoff. Philly's a playoff, Lakers are a playoff. So if we go up to the 8th of March, you've got another 3 playoff games. So you're looking at 13 games against playoff teams and 4 or 5 against like bottom feeders, if you want to call them that. That's a tough ass stretch for me in the middle of the season when you've already done your NBA Cup, your legs are starting to feel a little bit tired, you've had some back-to-backs, right? Boom, here's a stretch of big ass games, right? How are you feeling about that, Ryan?
I think it's gonna be tough, mainly because of like a lot of the travel. One of the things that I was looking at when I went through the schedule was just looking at the back-to-backs to see how bad they would be. Um, Honestly, the back-to-back from Toronto to Detroit might be a little tricky, and I think Detroit's one of those teams that could sneak up on the Celtics. It'll be interesting to see like how the Raptors are going to do because they are young, but they're still up and coming. Definitely trying to build out a base around Scotty Barnes there, but a lot of playoff teams, and it's teams that have history with the Celtics too. Obviously, Dallas is a finals rematch. Miami still a thorn in Boston's side. You've got the Knicks, new look Knicks twice in February, one home, one away. Going against Cleveland too is another tough team. And then you've got a lot of these home games where it's a back-to-back. You've got Portland one night and then Philly the next. You get a day off, and then you get to face the Lakers. I'm assuming it's an 8:30 p.m. game on a Saturday. It's probably going to be ESPN, so bright lights. And you're kicking off March with a matchup, 1 o'clock matinee, which we're at one point. It's on a Sunday, 1 o'clock matinee game. Those are usually a trap for the Celtics.
Yeah,
I know at one point in the
pisses
season
me
those were
off.
tough. And it's against Denver, and it's a home game, so like that would concern me a little bit.
Scheduled
And
loss,
then
bro.
even then, like when we were looking through the schedule, we looked through March 8th, but they still are going to play a couple other teams in back-to-backs. They're playing Portland and Sacramento. Those are both on the road. Miami and Brooklyn, back-to-back, both on the road. Then they face the Thunder as well in there on the 12th. That's a home game. They've got plenty of teams in the mix there. And then even then, they close out the month against Phoenix. And then the final game of the month is going to be against Memphis. So, there's a lot of teams in there that are going to give the Celtics problems. It's a tough stretch. I mean, it honestly will be decided on how tough it's going to be based on where I think Kristaps Porzingis is.
Yeah.
Honestly, the health of the rest of the team is going to make a difference. That goes without saying. But Porzingis coming into this, you're going to probably get him back maybe towards the end of December.
Early
Maybe.
January probably feels like it's fair.
Yeah,
I
I think he'll be back by then. I just don't know what the speed's going to be. So that stretch of games could be really, really tough for the Celtics, depending on where he's at health-wise.
Yeah, so the way I look at this with injuries is I try never to just be like, well, logic tells me they're going to be back in December because setbacks happen. Maybe you want to keep him out a bit longer because you're on a good run and you don't want to risk his health. You could get to a point in January where the Celtics have destroyed everybody. You're like, what's the point in throwing KP in there? Let's hold him out to the All-Star break. And then we can ramp him up just in time for the playoffs, right? There's a world where that actually makes sense. I don't think that happens by any stretch, but there is some logic there. I think that for me, the hardest point of this February and March stretch is a lot of the teams they're facing are very physical. Philadelphia play physical. You've got Joel Embiid there. Paul George will be quite physical. Cleveland play physical defense. Dallas, not so much. New York are one of the most physical teams in the league in terms of how they man up on you and they zone up on you. Miami, well, it's Miami. Toronto are very much a physical team because everybody's long and athletic and young. You've got a couple of if I'll just flip over to the March, Denver don't really play physical. They like to play angles and traps. I like them. The Lakers will be physical. There's a lot of physicality in that stretch, and the games are pretty condensed, as they usually are. It's not like this is anything new. But to me, that can have a toll, especially when you've got a Porzingis that may or may not have just come back from injury. You've got an aging Al Horford. You're trying to keep Derek White, Drew Holiday, Jason, Jalen. You're trying to keep all these guys healthy, even down to your bench, right? You need to keep Pritchard healthy. You need Hauser healthy. There's going to be so much on being fitness, being healthy. I don't want to keep repeating that word. I'm being physically fit. There's going to be a lot there in terms of not wanting to drop games to try and keep that momentum going. You want to finish in the first seed again. You saw how much of an impact that had for the Celtics last season. That's going to be a goal, hopefully. You're trying to make your path in the postseason as easy as possible. So, you can give ESPN and everybody reason to talk about, well, your path was easy. Fuck that. But you want to do that. So to do that, you have to do these hard miles. And that means that this stretch is going to be tough. Now, I do have a second stretch that will be tough as well, which we can look at in a moment. But I just wanted to see if you wanted to pick out any key games in this February to March where you're like, yo, this could be a momentum shifter.
I think I want to say that 4-game stretch in the week to kick off March where it's Denver, 2 days off. Then you've got Portland, and then you get Philly in the back-to-back. You get a day off, and then you go against the Lakers. You have a 6-game stretch before you go on the road where you have the back-to-back against Miami and Brooklyn. And in that stretch, you're going to face, the weakest team of the bunch is probably going to be Portland, but you need to see if they're going to take a step forward because they've got all of that young talent. But you're also going to be going against Utah as well, who just locked up Lauri Markkanen on a long-term deal. And then you've got the OKC Thunder, Denver, Philly, and the Lakers in that mix too. So that's going to be a tough homestand. And because you're going to be going on the road for the rest of the month, you've got 8 road games and you're only going to have one break after that when you've got, after the back-to-back between Miami and Brooklyn, you've got one home game against Brooklyn and then you're back on the road for the rest of the month. So you kind of have to make a strong homestand there. And it's during that stretch of that month there, that beginning of March is going to be the really tough stretch, I think.
That stretch, sorry, I was on mute and I was like, where's the mute button go? That stretch in March, I have that penciled in as one of the toughest stretches too, because then, as you said, you do kind of flow into Utah's could be a trap game. They've got better this year. Markkanen's there. They've re-signed Markkanen as well. But then you've got the Thunder 2 days later, right? And you've just come off this grueling stretch against so many incredible teams, so much physicality. And then it's like, damn, dude, we got the Thunder who play fast, who play hard, who play gritty. You come off that, you got Miami again. So that entire March, February and March, I mean, March on its own as a standalone month is arguably the toughest month of the season. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
I think the only thing that I look at that could be tougher is like earlier in the year as the team's trying to navigate without having Porzingis in the fold. I think that's something that could be tricky there. Just a couple of those back-to-backs. I mean, the biggest one towards the end of November, where you've got a back-to-back against Minnesota and then the Clippers, that could be tricky. And then I probably look at low-key, like, because they're going to be in the middle of the NBA Cup, which we talked about before already, so I won't delve into it too much. But you've got two different back-to-backs. One's Cleveland and then Miami. Then you've got a day off. You go against Detroit at home, and then you go take a Thursday off, and then you got a Friday, Saturday back-to-back against Milwaukee and Memphis. So I think that stretch there is also very difficult, where you're facing 4 out of the 5 teams in a week are going to be really, really tough. Clearly playoff teams and teams that the Celtics have a history with in some shape, way, manner, or form. So that could be a little bit of a tough stretch too, especially if, they're trying to get Porzingis back. We still don't really know. I mean, we get a rough time frame. I always go back to that injury just because I feel like so much was made last year of how good the Celtics were, how they were able to survive without Porzingis in games. And now you're starting off the year without him. And I know that you didn't have him for all of this playoff run. So in a way, it helps that you kind of have this preparation of like, okay, we managed to keep our big man rotation intact. We've got everything we've got, planned out in terms of rotations. They can kind of utilize what they've learned in the time without Porzingis to kind of kick off this season strong, because they have to. Like, you can't fall behind and then hope that Porzingis comes back and can get you right on the back track. It's not that I think they're going to, start off the year slow, but you still have to come in with that intensity of like, hey, we're the top dogs. Everyone's going to be coming for us. If we didn't have a target on our back, we're going to have one in there now. And you've got a couple of different teams who have something to prove, who could very well easily try and, get a jump on the Celtics. That's why, like, you really have to watch out for these trap games, even if it is, a Thursday night home game against the Chicago Bulls or something like that, or
matinee against
the
the
Hornets.
Nuggets at 1 p.m. where Adam will be watching live and you'll shit the bed and I'll be
Such
upset.
a trap game. Oh,
dude, do you know how sick?
screams
Do you know I
trap
got
game.
to the point where I don't want to watch matinees anymore?
It stresses me out.
Like, I'd much rather just stick to my usual routine of watching the game the following morning while everyone's asleep and being ready for when you're awake than watching live with everybody so I can be just as sad. Well, I want to do that. I have to like rework my entire day for a matinee game. My entire schedule goes out the window. And
even if it's a Sunday?
Yeah, dude, I'm still working. I work 7 days a week. Does the NBA stop?
It's got that dog in him.
Yo, I got that dog.
Grind don't stop. Grind don't stop.
But jokes aside, like, the Celtics were better at matinee games last season. I watched a few where they actually won, and that was great. I do think, as you said, having the reps without KP there is important. We've touched on this ad nauseum over the last few episodes of just, Neemi's there. You can give Neemi run, Tillman, Cornet, Al Horford. If you need to slide Tatum up to play some point 0.5 point center, then you can do that. If you want to go small ball, you can do that. It doesn't, like, whatever you need to do, there's so much optionality within this roster and so many versatile guys that you can plug and play whatever rotation you need. Having him back for this stretch is going to be important, right? And I know I said there was another stretch in the season that I deemed difficult. And again, it is in March. This is why I'm saying March to me is the toughest stretch. And that's
the odds of March.
That's because there's a West Coast road swing at the very end. So if you look at it, you've got Portland, Sacramento, Phoenix, San Antonio, Memphis. So that's between the 23rd and the 31st. And now the games itself aren't necessarily some of the hardest games. Like, Memphis are going to be way better than they were last year if they're healthy. They were decimated by injuries before the season even started. So expecting them to be bottom feeders is just a fool's errand. They're going to be a tough team. They'll be a playoff team for sure. I say for sure the West is deep, but I really expect them to be a playoff team. But Portland are a rebuilding team. This should be an easy out. Sacramento, outside of Wembanyama, I'm like, okay, they got Chris Paul there, but you should be able to beat them. Phoenix, okay, they're going to be tough. San Antonio, I've just said, sorry, Sacramento will be tough because they play fast. They've got good shooters. They play a very similar style to what Boston does in terms of that run and gun shooting offense. It's just Boston's defense is on a completely different level. So when you look at it, really, it's 2 winnable games, 3 difficult games. But the reason this means a lot to me in terms of difficulty level is because of what could be on the line. Like, if you've struggled in the season, or if you've built a ton of momentum and then you come into this West Coast road swing, where if we go back, not last season, the season before, it was a West Coast road swing that derailed the season. These swings can make or break your momentum. And this late into the season, where it's at the end of March, coming into April, there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games after that road swing before the postseason. If you have a tough run out west and then you come back and you're stuttering, that's not an ideal start for the playoffs, right? So you need to hit the ground running in that. You need to at least come away from there. There's 5 games. You want to be 4-1. That's where you want to be. 3-2 at a push. If you've already got like the first seed sewn up, you've took your foot off the gas a little bit. Ideally 4-1. Well, ideally 5-0. But realistically, 4-1. Maybe you drop a game to Phoenix. Maybe you win the first 4 and you drop one at Memphis just because you're a bit tired. You want to get home. Who knows? But if you come back on a losing record and now you've only got 7 games to really pull your trousers back up and get going again, that's difficult. And that to me makes that road swing such a pivotal point in the season, because it's like, yo, what's going to be riding on that by the time we get there? So that could be a telling point. March is just a cluster, dude.
Yeah, and I think there was one thing too is even before that game against Portland, if you go to the 21st, they kick off that road trip. They start with the game against Utah. And you said Wemby earlier, and Chris Paul for San Antonio on Saturday. That could be very well, to me, a trap game because there's 2 days off before it. And then you go into it. Wemby's obviously going to have some challenges in terms of physicality, just his sheer size. Continues to be a freak. Played amazing for France in the Olympics. More power to him, especially at his age. And you never know what kind of development he's going to have in his second year. You have no idea where this kid's going to be. And again, like, that momentum swing is crucial because you could be in a dogfight. You don't know. There's no way to know. And this is why, we do these episodes where we kind of look at, the lay of the land and what could potentially be, a hole in the schedule or a problem for the Celtics as they go into that final stretch. I mean, if you're lucky and you end up in the same similar spot that you had last year where, hey, we've got a few games in hand, we just need to come through this trip healthy, rested, guys aren't, hobbling. We've got people in good spirits going into this final stretch of April before we go into the playoffs. It very much is about how you're playing, the quality of play, and overall where the roster is at in terms of health. If you can rest guys, if you can lock Tatum out of TD Garden so he finally takes a goddamn rest day, that would be great. I'd love to be at the point where they could do that and not worry. It entirely depends on how they handle this month, because I think March could be a make or break, because it really, really, really is a tough stretch of just travel and back-to-backs and multiple playoff teams to kick off that month. So, again, if you're going to go into that month, you really need to start out strong because, again, you don't really have much of a break. You've got a big road trip at the end of it before going into those final stretch games of the season. So it's crucial to wrap it up well, and March is going to be that trouble month, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I've got it down as the toughest month on the entire schedule. The month before that, so the second toughest month, if we want to go there, is December. And I think December's a tough one, but March, again, as you mentioned, you articulated it better than me. But that's the one where it's a swing month, where momentum's built or lost, right? So to me, that's the most important one on the entire schedule. December, however, where you're kind of still feeling your way into the season in December. You start in mid-October. November starts to slowly ramp up. You have your NBA Cup tournament games. You see who goes through, who's heading to Vegas for a warm winter. Let's see how it goes. But then you get to December, it's right, you got a back-to-back to open December. Cleveland away, Miami at home. So just travel. Then you get a day off. Then you got Detroit. Then a day off. Then a back-to-back. Milwaukee on the 6th. Memphis on the 7th. Then there's a break. So if Boston don't go to Vegas, they don't go. There's a big NBA Cup break. I'm assuming they haven't told us what game's there because nobody knows, right? I'm assuming the Celtics are going to have games in that stretch. Then they've got Chicago on the 19th at home. Then they fly to Chicago for the 21st. While they're in Chicago, they'll finish that game, fly over to Orlando on the 23rd, come home for Philly, Indiana, Toronto. Look, that's a stretch, dude. And you don't know how deep they're going to go in the NBA Cup, so you don't know how many more miles are going to be put on them there. I understand that the schedule gets reworked a little bit, and every game in the NBA Cup, apart from the final, counts towards your regular season record. So even if the Celtics storm through, they won it because the Lakers won last season, and they want to even it with the Lakers because, you know, the rivalry, then they might play one extra game. But that stretch between the 10th and the 17th, that could probably have games in. So you don't. So even without the NBA Cup, we've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There's 12 games without the NBA Cup in a 31-day month. So that seems fair. It's almost one every 3 days with close-ish. You had 2 or 3 or 4 more games in there in the NBA Cup tournament. Now you're looking at a game every other day for an entire month. And that's tough because there's a lot of travel. There's 2 back-to-backs to begin. I don't know. I think December's a trap month. I think that could, again, really build some momentum. I think that there could be risk of injury if they do go deep in the NBA Cup. I just think, even to end it, Philly, Indy, Toronto. Dude, Philly is the 25th. That's your Christmas Day game. 2 days later, you go to Indy, you play Indiana. 2 days after that, you play them again. Then you play Toronto. So they are all at home, but man, that's a stretch.
Yeah, and it's, again, Indiana's a team that is going to be a problem across the NBA, but especially for the Celtics, like that's a tough team regardless of that sweep, in the conference finals. That's still a very, very good team capable of giving the Celtics issues, especially if they take any steps forward. We still need to see how Pascal Siakam's going to look when he's really, really settled in with the Pacers. You didn't have Tyrese Halliburton fully healthy, and you expect some of those other guys like Andrew Nembhard or Mathurin to take steps forward, just because of the nature of
Ask Milwaukee,
because it's so young.
Ask Milwaukee what it's like to play Indiana. Go ask them now. I'll wait because I find it hilarious.
They're gonna hate it.
But yeah, India, I'll take them seriously. I know that everybody will look at like the conference finals and be like, "Well, Boston handled business." Halliburton got hurt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they're not an easy out, and I think that one thing that people need to remember is Siakam's going to have an off season with them. He's going to have a full training camp with them. That's going to make a difference because he'll be more integrated into the system. There's multiple young guys. You mentioned Nembhard, Mathurin, Halliburton himself that are going to have taken a bit of a developmental leap in their game. Teams like Indiana, where they're at, internal development, and we've seen this with the Celtics, internal development will be the difference maker. It's what takes them to the next level. It's not who they bring in. It's not the free agents they sign. It's can your star young guys keep improving year on year? If the answer is yes, you're a problem. If the answer is no, you've got some problems. That's pretty much the way it goes. And we saw that with the Celtics. Brown was basically a linear improvement throughout his developmental years. He's in his prime now, and he's still adding to his game. Mathurin, Nembhard, Hallier like that. They're a tough out, dude. I think 2 games against them after a Christmas Day game against Philly, that's not going to be easy. That you don't want to end December going into the new year trying to get a winning record for the month or trying to bounce back from a loss against Indiana on the 29th because it's cold as shit. You didn't want to get there. You weren't feeling it. Now you got to play Toronto in 2 days. They're going to try and bruise you up. December, man. It goes March, then December for me in terms of difficulty.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I don't know how much more I have to add on that. I feel like we've kind of hit everything that I would want to hit on this.
Okay. Well, with that then, we're going to leave you to it. You've had your dose of vitamin C's. We'll be back again soon. We are going to, once the season's here, I just want to let everyone know we will be going to like full podcast episode if you're listening audio-wise. YouTube, we tend to stick to 20-25 minutes, so we're right in that range now for YouTube. If we record a long podcast, we will split that into multiple segments to post up on the YouTube channel. So if you're watching on YouTube, we're not going to expect you to sit around for 40-45 minutes because we're not dicks. Till then, I'll catch you all later. Do you want to say anything else, Tim?
Cheers.
Peace.